They don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get in the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD with my lovely co-host.
Hello, JD.
Melissa.
Hey.
Happy Monday.
Oh gosh, Mondays are not my favorite days for sure.
It's definitely thrown me for a loop because usually we don't record podcasts on Monday, but they come out on Monday, and it's just a great thing. Well, Melissa, I'm super excited today. We're bringing you guys a ton of value with this next guest. I first was introduced to him. He was speaking on stage at a Flip Hacking Live event. And he just took the room by storm, literally hundreds of investors hanging on his every word. And
Was that San Diego?
In San Diego, yeah. And this guy is smart, thinks about things in a level that I can barely comprehend, but he's able to break it down really, really well. And I hope that this awesome introduction didn't put too much pressure on him to succeed today. But I want to introduce you guys to Ryan Smith. He runs a company called Dreamsmith, and that's like that we've used him to further along our business, individual one-on-one coaching, dealing with marketing, everything marketing, list building. He's helped us run Facebook ads, different ad copy, and all kinds of really great stuff that took our marketing and our personal business to the next level.
For sure.
And I'm sure you guys are going to get a ton of value out of it. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. I love hanging out with you guys any chance that I can. So when you guys reached out, it was a no-brainer. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of it. I love hanging out with you guys, and I'm looking forward to today.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, for some of our guests who maybe weren't at Flip Hacking Live, haven't listened to all the podcasts and seen the videos and stuff, can you just kind of give them a brief introduction of who you are and how you got to where you're at? And then I'm sure we can go down the marketing rabbit hole from there.
Sure. Absolutely. So, I going back to like the mid 2000s, I joined the military and I was in the military for a while. And when I got out, I started working as a defense contractor. And for the first time in my life, I started making decent money. But I looked around and I realized that my ceiling in that position was very, very short, very low ceiling. Like there wasn't much I could do to progress further. I was kind of at a ceiling already, and I was fairly early in that career path. So at that point in time, I started looking. I said, there's got to be some other ways because I can't stay capped at 100 and something thousand every year for the rest of my life. There has to be some other way. So I didn't know anything about anything, but I knew that some people were making money in real estate. So I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, read it, loved it, and went to a local investor meeting there in Pensacola for the first time. I felt like a fool because I had the house that I lived in, but I couldn't afford to buy a second house. Mm-hmm. And I thought, man, I'm going to show up at this investor meeting with all these people that are looking to buy houses. They're going to ask me if I'm ready to buy a house, and I'm going to say no, and they're going to laugh me out of the room. And that was kind of my concern. But anyway, super long story short, I started wholesaling at that time, got in that group, started wholesaling, ended up there's another person in my market that was doing a lot, and I ended up joining his company for several years. We did hundreds of wholesale deals together. I did a lot of dispositions and marketing. And then back in 2019, I started I started a company called Leadsmith, and it is focused on marketing for real estate investors. And so I've been doing that for the last 4 years. We are heavily focused on data and making sure that we get in front of the right people. And then the second part of that is the marketing. So that's kind of our focus. We really take a lot of time on the data side to make sure that we're getting in front of the right people. And then we run marketing campaigns to them.
Yeah, it was a big game changer for us, for sure, once we got you helping us.
And not just, we already know, and I think that's something that we should go into, is how do you get in front of the right people? How do you identify who the right people are and all that kind of stuff? But for us, we already knew that was important. But some of the biggest things that you helped us with is like, hey, what are the right key performance indicators to track? How should we be looking at this? How do we know if we're doing good, if we're not doing good? Are we even getting our money back? And we really put in a full system based off of Ryan's guidance on how to track what we were doing, our leading activities that would predict our lagging outcomes. And that was huge for us. But if you take it a step before that, what you said is getting in front of the right people. I think that is, especially in today's guru environment, where it's just like, oh, well, you just call these people and you got your deal. Here's $60,000. Give me $20,000 and I'll teach you how to do it. With that mindset, I think what gets lost in translation is how do you identify and get in front of the right people? Ryan, can you kind of help maybe break that down, and at least that thought process on how we're doing that and the kind of activities that newer investors or agents could take?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. One of the big things that I think we should keep top of mind is, when it comes to wholesaling, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's an extremely small percentage of the properties that are sold that are wholesaled. So a very, very small amount of people are even willing to do a wholesale deal. And the fact of the matter is that usually it takes some type of external circumstance that causes them to want to exchange speed for equity. And if we can go in and we can spend more time finding those type of people, not people that we're trying to talk into, taking less than they want, people that need help and need out of a situation. If we can stay consistently in front of those people, that's where we're going to have the majority of our luck. So, we can go out and we can target these huge, broad lists. I mean, you go back to like 2016 timeframe, you could take an absentee list, mail them postcards, and get 8x return without that much trouble. And those days aren't here anymore. And we have to get a lot smarter. And I feel like there's a lot of different avenues you can go down when you have your marketing dollars and you need to make the most of them. But I think there's a lot of bad avenues out there right now as well. And you have to be careful because if you're not doing the right things, you can lose money. So, I think that's why it's important to, follow people like you guys and, figure out this stuff at a deeper level rather than just, hey, my friend downloaded this list, I'm going to download it too and hope for the best,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that we've learned over time is that everybody is pulling the list off of PropStream. Everybody's pulling the lists off of Listsource. Anything where you can just go and click a button and get the list, that list is being done by everybody, the brand new wholesalers and the really large companies, because they have such a machine that they have to feed on a constant basis. They have so many marketing channels that they need to get more data into that. So they're pulling every list you can think of. And the small guys, because they don't know any better, so they just hit the send me this list and market to them. And I think, at least in our experience, the best lists are the ones that are harder to pull, or when we take a bunch of those lists and stack them together so that we can see, who has more problems, I guess.
Yeah.
So Ryan, what's your experience been with finding the lists to pull? And really, how are you thinking about which list to get? And then maybe if you have some of your favorite lists that we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to concentrate on is just different types of distress. So what I try to do is I try to find unique data sets and then go pull a lot of unique lists that fit a certain criteria. So the first step is we got to figure out what we're targeting. So what locations are we going after? What ARV range are we going after? What property types? And then how much equity does a property have to have for us to be able to do a deal? Once we establish that, then we can go and start getting a list of properties that fit that criteria. Like you mentioned, pulling them locally at the county level for the county records and the court records and stuff like that. Great way to get leads very, very quickly, way before everybody else gets them. And I think that's a great way to pull lists. But beyond that, there's a lot of lists that you can go and you can pull from these various data services. And, you had mentioned PropStream as an example. And, you're right. PropStream has so many different users. And I think the majority of them, they just go in there, they pull fairly broad lists that their buddy pulled, and then they market to those lists. But, inside of even those systems like PropStream that are used like heavily, there's some really specialty stuff you can go in there and do and pull out some lists that are, stacked with multiple different types of distress. To give you some examples of some of the different types of distress that we are interested in are, one of them is bad credit. Another one would be mortgage lates, tax delinquent, code enforcement, 85 and above, divorce, inherited plus absentee stack. Now, there's a lot of them. So what I'll do is I'll go in there and I'll grab all the divorces in that area. I'll go and grab all of the bad credit in that area. Go and grab, all these different lists, bring them into one centralized location, put them all together and see which one of those properties are on multiple lists. And then we prioritize who we're going to market to based on how many lists they're on. So we can't afford to market to everybody in our market, but we can't afford to market to a handful of them. So if we can identify those people that don't want to sell, but absolutely need to sell based on the circumstances, if we consistently stay in front of those people, we stack the deck in our favor and we start playing games we can't lose.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And, we started not full-time real estate. We had other jobs. And when you're looking at, ideally, if it was a perfect world, marketing was free, I would just get a list of every single property in the county. I would contact every single person and say, hey, do you want to sell your house for 10 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar? And then the ones that did would say yes, and we would move on from there. But when you have limited resources, limited money, limited time, limited energy because of all the daily life kind of stuff, your best bet is putting yourself in front of the people who are more likely to sell than just a random list of people. And I think that's one of the techniques and tactics that you helped convey to us that was, it had phenomenal results in our business. I guess. So you get these specified lists of people, and then you have to reach out to them. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what you're seeing? I know that you're coaching a lot of people and part of a lot of masterminds and really contributing everywhere. What are you seeing as like, is mail working right now? Is cold calling working, text message, or PPC leads? What are you seeing as far as how to get your message to the potential lead?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, let me caveat this answer by saying that there's people successfully doing all channels, and you guys know that. But just big picture of what I'm seeing at a high level and at scale. What I'm seeing right now work is direct mail. Direct mail is working. Kind of like it always has. And then the other side is online. Up until the last 2 months, I think that PPL, pay per lead, was one of the best investments you could do, just because, depending on which provider you use, just because you knew if you spent X amount of dollars, you were going to get a lead. If you get enough leads, you're going to close deals, and it works. But for whatever reason, kind of widespread, I've seen that kind of dip off in the last couple of months. I don't know if it'll come back, but I do think the online component is very important. You have the direct mail piece where you can touch these people that aren't online, that, you know, are older, that respond better to mail and all these things. But there's also a demographic that is online that you can target as well. And I think it's smart to have both going at the same time. So yeah, that would be my answer. Direct mail as a staple, and then I think an add-on would be nice. You know, but I think it's kind of depends on the market right now as far as which one to do. But I like direct mail as the base, and then add on something on top of that, whether it be, you know, PPL, maybe PPC, but PPC is more for more experienced that have bigger budgets, I would say, because it takes a lot of money to be competitive in PPC in a lot of markets.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, Ryan, one of the questions that we get from newer investors all the time is, hey, can you take a look at my postcard? Do you think this will work? Or should I be sending postcards, or should I be sending letters, or you know, what kind of mail piece? How frequent should I be sending these out? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. No matter where we go in the country, they respond differently to different things. And, you know, when we first go into a market, unless the client has already been doing something specific that has been working for a while, usually we have to do a lot of testing. And what we want to do is, I think that people get a little too wrapped up on the postcard or the letter or stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I do think it's part of it. But if you look at any kind of marketing training, a lot of times what they'll say is, when you look at an offer, it's got 40% of the offer is based on the offer itself. 40% is based on the people you're targeting, and 20% is the copy and graphics and that kind of stuff. In our business with wholesaling, in my opinion, the list is a lot more than 40%. It makes up such a huge percentage of it that when we get in front of these people, the right people, we don't have to say like the exact perfect thing. Like, they're like, hey, I need help, let's do this. But to answer your question, in my opinion, it all comes back to testing. And what we want to do is, no matter what channel we're using, whether it be direct mail, texting, PPL, PPC, you name it, we want to get all these channels and we want to track them in a way that we can compare apples to apples. And I want to see, how much does it cost me to get a lead on PPL, direct mail, SMS, you know, all these different things. How much does it cost me to generate an appointment on these? How much does it cost me to generate a deal? And when I do a deal, how much money do I make? Mm-hmm. And when we get it down to that specific, then we can start comparing apples to apples and say, hey, you know, we're getting deals for $2,500 over here, but on this other one, we're paying $7,500, and we're not making any more money on the back end. So I think it's getting clarity on those numbers. The other thing is testing out some different mailers and things like that. Me personally, I like letters, just because we're going to so much trouble to stack and figure out who those people are. I like to put our best foot forward when we do get in front of them. But to answer your question, my opinion is you have a budget, and your budget allows you to get in front of X number of people. So let's just use direct mail, for instance, just because it's easy. Let's say our budget is $1,000 a month. Direct mail postcard costs about 50 cents roughly. That means that we can market to 2,000 people this month is what we can afford to market to. So what I would suggest doing is to create the absolute best list of 2,000 people that you can, and consistently stay in front of those people each month for several months in a row, at least 5 or 6, and track your numbers along the way, and you will get the best ROI from running your campaigns in that manner. Yeah,
absolutely. I think when dealing with the new investors, and what we say when we're helping our agents is, you know, you don't need to build a better business card like that. So many people, before they start taking action, they want to set up their LLC, make the perfect business card, make sure you have the perfect website, and that's a sneaky way to procrastinate. And with investors, I think it's the same thing when you're talking about the mail piece. In our experience, we have a higher response rate with letters, but we can send out more on postcards. So a lot of our our real niche first to market stuff, like for us specifically, it's a probate deals. We're sending out letters and we get a great response to that. But anything broader, we're sending postcards, and they're just go on our postcard list every single month. And the probate ones that don't respond to the letter, then we send them the postcard in the next mailing. And we track all of our numbers, and we have better response rates, but not necessarily bigger discounts or more deals closed from letters than postcards. But I think my answer to that is it doesn't really matter until you do it long enough to see the results. And we know people who are sending out letters and do great, and they don't ever send a postcard. We know people who are only sending postcards, and taking the action and tracking the results is probably the most important thing.
I agree. It all comes, I mean, this sounds like an oversimplification, but this is really all it comes down to, is figuring out the most likely to sell at a discount in your market. Start running marketing campaigns to them, test something else, whichever one works better, go with that. Just keep doing that. And something that this was taught to me more on the digital side of things, but it's a great lesson either way. Whenever we do any kind of marketing, we spend money, and a lot of the times we'll spend money, and the only thing that we take from it is, did we get deals from this or did we not? That's the only thing that determines the success of the marketing campaign. But regardless of how many deals we did or didn't do during that marketing campaign, we should have a better idea of our market, what works, what doesn't. We should be moving closer to a solution that works, rather than just, that didn't really go like we wanted it to. We spent $1,000 and only got, 6 calls. Hey, that's something you can work with. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do think one of the other things that's missed, and I'm hoping is like the compound effect of sending marketing consistently. Can you talk about that a little bit, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I think is one of the most important lessons that we can learn is the rule of 7s in marketing says that in order for somebody to even know that we exist as a business, typically they have to see our messaging at least 7 times. It doesn't have to be all the same channel, but it's a mixture of different channels. And if you look at the statistics, most people, they do not buy until at least they've been contacted at least 5 times. 80% of the sales come from the 5th touch and beyond. Most of your newer investors, they get out there, they'll create a list, they'll go through the steps, they'll get a postcard, they'll send it out. And the first one, they'll send out a round of mail. It goes okay, whatever, nothing great. The second one goes out, it's okay. They're starting to get some leads in, and then they're like, hey, I'm out. And then they quit. Well, just a very, very small percentage of the transactions are going to occur from the first or second touch. So the magic of this whole thing is creating this system where you're constantly staying in front of the most ideal people over time. You get the touches in. Really what we wanted to do is just raise their hand in some kind of way, whether they respond or send us a text or whatever else. And that allows us to be able to identify them as a higher quality potential client. And then we can start marketing to them specifically, unlike we could to the entire area. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that goes back, one, follow-up is always important. People say, hey, follow-up's important, but you don't really know what that means. For the example that we were talking about before we started filming is we sent out a mailer to a property in December of 2020. And I went back and looked at it, and we've had just straight marketing attempts. We've had 9 separate attempts from then till now, and follow-up attempts and text messages and, hey, how you doing, calls. We've had a lot more than that. Well, we just put that property under contract last week, and the actual mailer that we sent that person specifically was December of 2020. So the follow-up is the key, but it took multiple times. And sometimes it's not about whether or not they need to sell, and just realizing that their life circumstances, those external pressures forcing them to sell, change, and we want to be the one they're thinking of when that happens. In this specific example, they got notified from code enforcement. Well, they should have been notified from code enforcement years ago, but code enforcement, it was knocking on their doorstep and finally got serious with them. And that's what it took to push them over to wanting to sell instead of trying to fix the problem themselves. And we were in front of them when that happened.
But we have quite a few of those.
Yeah, right now.
3 years ago that we've been just marketing to them consistently. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That shows the power of that follow-up. Yeah, that's phenomenal. Congratulations. That's exciting.
Okay, Ryan. So I know that there's no way that we can cover everything that you know in our short little podcast. But you have a couple of groups that I think are important to share with other people that I'm a part of, and some other services. And I'm wondering if, people wanted to hear more from you and wanted to know more about what you're doing. Where can we send them to get them in contact with you or see what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that wants more information can reach out to me via email. It's ryan@dreamsmith.one. That's the email address. You guys can reach out to me. I'm happy to point you in whatever direction I think would help you, even if it's not with us. As far as the different stuff that we do, like JD mentioned, we have a group that is just devoted to REI marketing. What's working now? What's working best? It's solely focused on that. So we have that group, and then I also do a lot of one-on-one, like I have with JD and Melissa in the past. So feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, and just to hit, one, obviously Ryan's had a tremendous impact on our business, but there's some pretty heavy hitters in that marketing list mastery group that are doing a lot of big things across the country. So it's not just localized to the Florida Panhandle. There are people from across the country who are doing really good things and come in there with an open heart and a sharing mentality. So I definitely think that that's worth its weight in gold as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's some really high level people in there. Absolutely.
Well, awesome, Ryan. We appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Ryan.
You're very welcome. Thank you both. It was great chatting with you. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Awesome. See you Thursday.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter @TheRealEstateJam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.